You're listening to Copy Chief Radio. Get all the episodes and join the community at copychief.com.
What's up, everybody? It's Kev. Thank you for being here. I'm with Sara Estes today from copytiger.com. Sara is a freelance copywriter. You hear me talk a lot about the goods. What does it mean to have the goods? And without embarrassing Sara, Sara is sort of my poster child for the goods and what it means to have the goods. So what does that mean? What does it actually look like? Well, we're going to hear from Sara about how she thinks about her freelancing business, how she vets clients. One of the key things that I really try to preach and get across to freelancers is that when you're meeting a client, it's not an audition. This is not American Idol. It's a relationship, and you are vetting them as much as they are vetting you. That simple mindset flip really changes things a lot. So I know Sara has some things on that she can share, but we're going to start with a recent situation that Sara was in where she had the ability to pick between three really good scenarios, three companies that wanted her full attention, wanted to buy all her time if she was willing to sell it to them. So let's find out what she did in that scenario. Sara, thanks for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
This is going to be fun. So I'll let you tell the story. One thing I like to tell people is on this freelancing journey, you're going to switch paths at different times for different reasons, right? And so the quick definition for me of the paths are: path one is wearing all the hats freelancer. You're just out hustling clients to keep your calendar full. You're pretty good at all the things, marketing your business, having prospect calls, closing deals, getting proposals signed, agreeing on money, project management, managing your own time, keeping the clients responsible to their end of the deal, right? Sort of the most work. Path two is what I call the leave me alone to do my work copywriter. It's like they're great collaborators. It's like, can I just do the thing I'm great at, which is write copy, and do it with a select few really great clients? And then path three is what I call the entrepreneurial freelancer, where it's like they can't help themselves from creating systems and creating trainings and formulas for things. They're always engineering some system. And for them, they find freelancing, they're a little impatient for it, and they'd rather just create something and sell that as the way they do business. So with that definition, pretty easy to say for you, at least right now, for reasons you'll explain, path two was the clear answer for you at this point in your career, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Things kind of changed a little bit for me recently because I found out that I was pregnant, and my husband and I had been trying for a long time to get pregnant. And so once we finally did, it was really, really exciting. But I was a freelancer, and when these life shifts happen, your priorities change a little bit. And I was thinking that it might be helpful to work with someone full-time, work with the company full-time, and be in-house, just so that the hustle of finding clients and marketing the business and all of that was tamped down just a little bit, and I could just focus on work and kind of have a little bit more security there while we went into this first year of parenthood.
Right. Massive change. And it's like, just knowing you're going to want to change your bandwidth in a direction of parenthood, probably the most important job any of us will ever have. So it's like, okay, let's make sure the business is more predictable than when we're just hustling as a path one. Now, it's a unique scenario because you have one really great client that would like you to come in full-time in-house. You welcome that for a lot of reasons. You really enjoy working with this client. But then all of a sudden, two other great opportunities come to you. You're now negotiating with these companies, being transparent with them that there are sort of other people in the running. They all really want you to choose them, let's just point that out, a really great situation, what I call the best problem a copywriter can have, right? It's still hard to choose and have to let people down, but done correctly, that's a good thing for everybody. It just means that The people you say no to go, ah, shocks, really wanted Sara, couldn't get her. Maybe someday down the line, the relationship's solid. Plus, you also get to refer other copywriters that they can look at, which only boosts your respect in the industry. But there's this other factor of you knowing that you're going to take some maternity leave. And usually there's a 90-day sort of like dating period in any long-term arrangement. And you wisely don't lead the conversations with that. Hey, I'm going to need month 3 off. So bring us to the moment when you had to now reveal this fact and make sure the companies were okay with that.
Sure. So it was kind of nerve-wracking because, like you said, you don't want to lead with that. It's just kind of an odd way to start an interview. You just want to see if you're a good fit to begin with before you even kind of start going into the conversation about limitations and scheduling and all of that. So I had gotten pretty far into the interview process before what felt like to me I was going to drop a bomb of my schedule. And what was absolutely incredible is the company that I ended up choosing. And I would like to preface this by, I also told all of my other clients about maternity leave and all that, and everyone was very understanding. But when you're going into a new job and you're trying to compete against all these people, this particular position was incredibly competitive. I was a little bit nervous that it was going to be a pitfall for me. So when I told them about my maternity leave, the fact that I was planning on taking, I pitched it as an entire month off. And what was incredible was their response. Their response to me was essentially, that's great. We're totally fine with that. It's within there's like a 90-day, like you said, a 90-day kind of probation period, just to make sure that a lot of people can interview well, but you want to make sure that the person can actually do the job. So totally understandable. But they told me that a month seemed a little short, and they were like, we're totally cool if you take 2 months or 3 months, whatever you think you need, you can just fill us in as that time comes up. And if you want to come back part-time or full-time, just gradually move into whatever you're ready for. And that was just incredible. If I wasn't won over at the beginning of the interviews with them, I was definitely won over at that point.
Just amazing. Again, it says so much about this idea of going in-house and committing to what I like to call a main client. Going in-house or being quote unquote full-time should and usually does mean that that is your main client. You are free to do things on the side. I only know one company currently that I'm helping recruit for that has a rule that if you work with them, they don't want you working with any other client. It's a bad limitation, but their choice, it's their policy, that's fine. That was a non-negotiable for you. If somebody said, hey, Sara, us and only us. So they were already giving you that trust, which again, just a smart thing for a company to do. My take is that I want them going out and doing things that make them smarter and better, and they can bring that wisdom back to us. But some people kind of have a scarcity controlling mindset around those things. And again, their choice. But then for them to say, hey, and I remember that because you shared their response with me, they specifically pointed out, we want a long-term relationship with you. If it takes longer to get going for this most important thing in your life, we're here for it.
Exactly. And that is really meaningful. And I think that just shows the value of having these in-house relationships and clients, because it really is, you are signing on for a long-term relationship with this particular client, as opposed to when you're in your freelancing business. A lot of these projects and people that you're working with are very short term. So it feels really good to know that both of you are agreeing to go into a long-term relationship, and kind of the ups and downs of life can happen, and you've got a long-term mindset.
Yeah, and be supported, because life does happen. Sometimes, like in your case, on purpose, with effort, and sometimes unexpectedly, right? And to have a great relationship with a company who values you and is ready to support you when unexpected things come along, then it just makes a world of difference. You and I were talking about the sort of the best way to define in-house, because this is such a scary term to so many freelance copywriters. And I understand it because, look, the whole idea of entrepreneurialism in freelancing is that word free, the freedom of having flexibility, making your own schedule. But let's be honest, too often what happens is we end up with the worst boss in the world, which is ourselves, because they're relentless and they overbook us. And I used to joke when I was in that grind, somebody would ask me to have lunch with them. And I'm like, I can't, my boss is an asshole. There's no way I can get away. The better way to think of it is in-house or full-time. What it really means is a great retainer that is ongoing. You're not signing in blood. Every contract has stipulations for how both parties can end it. And it's usually a 2-week max thing. It's just like, hey, if we're going to have a long-term relationship and you decide to move on or change, just please don't disappear one day and leave us in a lurch, right? It's completely understandable. And on the other side, if you're downsizing or going to have to let me go for whatever reason, at least pay out the month or give me a chance to replace you. Talk about the mindset for you when you came into freelancing, maybe stuff you pulled from your work history before that, because I feel like you looked at it differently. You were always about the relationships and you were always looking for a great opportunity, not these one-night stands.
Exactly. Yeah. When I got into freelancing, my goal was I wanted to work with a small amount of clients on a long-term basis. That was really what I was looking for because I love building relationships and I like carrying on these projects that you're able to see how things work out over time. And when it comes to copywriting, it's good to be able to see the patterns and to really learn a brand's voice and to kind of sink your heels into what they do as a brand. So I kind of had that in mind when I first started freelancing. I was looking for teams and entrepreneurs and people who wanted to bring on a copywriter for more than just a short email sequence or something like that. I did some of that in the beginning, but it wasn't my favorite because you're just kind of in and out and you don't really get to see the fruits of your labor. You're kind of handing over the copy and then God knows what happens to it after that. So what I was looking for from the get-go is those relationships. And naturally, as a progression of that, once you start getting in with the team, like I did with this one company who was a client for a long time, they start to look at you as an integral part of the team. Yeah. So that naturally kind of brings up potential conversations of full-time employment.
Right. It's just a natural progression. The trust is there. They're like, let's get all the Sara we can get. And so what have you found about those? Did you have to overcome any mental hurdles as a freelancer where it felt like maybe I'm giving away too much in agreeing to go full time with one client?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, like you said, you get into the freelancing world because you don't want to be tied and bound by a particular boss or a particular company. And it is nice to have the freedom of making your own schedule and choosing who you work with and choosing who your colleagues are. And that was a big deal for me too, was I wanted to design my business and my work life around people that I thought were just absolutely amazing, people who inspired me. Those were the people I wanted to surround myself with. So, I definitely think that the idea of considering a W-2 full-time job was out of the question for a minute until once you start weighing things and you understand okay, if it's a fully remote position where I am not restricted by, some kind of non-compete clause that means that I can't work with anyone else and I'm able to make my own schedule and write when I want, it really does just feel like a great retainer. And once I kind of figured that out, then I was much more open to the idea of going in-house with somebody as long as I could have other clients and other projects that excite me on the side as well.
Look, I get it. I know there's so many communities, I'm doing air quotes, communities for entrepreneurs out there, all filled with their own version of overnight experts chirping at you from behind the screen. You got your Facebook groups, your clubhouse rooms, just experts galore. How often do you feel like you're being pinballed around from thing to thing and picking up a little bit, a little piece there? How much of that is actually making it into your brain and your fingers and your business and affecting your money? How many of these people are actually out there in the field getting their hands dirty and testing to find out what actually works and what flops? Well, in the Copy Chief community, a real community, you get shoulder to shoulder with the most active, successful marketers working in the trenches today, all while learning from industry legends who rarely teach anywhere else, if ever. Copy Chief is an amazing community, super newbie friendly. Also, you'll find, elite level marketers and copywriters in there. They're all working to become the best at their craft, get paid top dollar for their skills, stay ahead of the competition by keeping their finger on the pulse of what's working now. That's the X factor when you're backed up by a community and you can get any question you have answered by people who actually do this stuff and can tell you from real world experience what to do for your project, for your offer, for your funnel, for your clients. Man, you're unstoppable when you've got that kind of confidence. Go check us out at copychief.com/join. If you've never been a member, you're going to see what you've been missing and you're going to say, where has this been all my life? And if you've been a member in the past, I would invite you to come and check out all the new stuff. We've completely updated all the tech. So we're on brand new platforms. Everything is slick and smooth and easy to access. And it's never been better. Copychief.com/join. I'll look for you inside.
I love your story because, and I've joked with you many times, like, I just wish I could clone you. And I say that in jest because what makes you special and so many other copywriters special is unclonable. I wouldn't actually want to clone them, but make you as recommendable, other people as recommendable is you. And to me, some of those reasons are how you show up, how prepared you are, how relaxed you are. You're just cool to talk to, right? I always describe you as very together. And it's just your nature. But take us behind the scenes. Is there any parts of that you've had to learn or old things that you had to unlearn to show up that way?
Definitely. The hardest part of especially like getting on Zoom and chatting with people and doing interviews. And if you're a freelancer doing discovery calls, a lot of that can be very difficult, especially when you're first starting out, because you're so focused on yourself and you're worried about what you're going to say, if you're going to look good or sound good. I have a lot of experience interviewing, being on the interview side and being on the interviewer side. So it's been interesting to kind of break down the walls of being afraid to talk to people. So I've worked in a few different places, but I was a private investigator for a long time, which meant that I interviewed people all the time, every day, all day long, all types of people. It ran the gamut from federal judges to people on the streets. And I think when you go through that experience and you have a lot of repetitions of talking to kind of anybody, you get really, really comfortable. So I think that's helped me move into all of these places where you really do have to be personable and have conversations with everybody and not freak out about it.
Yeah, that's a huge one. So because you've been on the other side of that, and I'm sure you have what are some moments where you got on with a potential client and it was a no for you? What are some of the red flags you would see?
One of the biggest ones is disorganization and someone really not knowing what they want. It's very difficult to work with someone who has no vision or no clear system of how they want to move forward with working with a copywriter. Of course, some uncertainties, okay. Like if they're still trying to figure out the system and what they're going to do, that's fine. But there have been some interviews that I got on and they really just had no idea how we were going to work together, or they had maybe had disastrous relationships with copywriters in the past. And when that kind of gets brought into it of like, they didn't understand what I wanted and it all got messed up, that can be a little bit of a red flag too, because sometimes if you're not giving correct instructions or giving like a clear pathway of like how we're going to move forward in this project, it can be really hard. So that's one of the biggest red flags.
Yeah. And you just want to go, I'm not your ex.
Yeah.
Stop talking about your ex. It's our first date. That's really good. And please.
And that's one of the great things about working with someone with in-house or companies who have a marketing team and have a system. You're really coming into something that's a little more structured and a little more sophisticated, which is just easier for everyone. And I really like that.
That's been a new revelation to me. All this evolving as I talk to more companies about how they work, right? You can tell so much by fast action, steady, calculated action. The ones who ask me for copywriters and I make introductions, I always have a rule for both parties. I say, keep me in the loop. I want to understand how this relationship plays out. And I want to learn from both sides, sort of like use me behind the scenes to help you unstick anything that might feel stuck, to shed light on things, but also to educate me on how this works well and when it doesn't. What I see the most with companies is if I always give them context before I actually make the introductions, right? I'm sending you 5 names. Here's what I know about the people. Here's what you need to know. Here's their LinkedIn, these things. And I don't hear back from a week. I'm like, bad start. This is not good. You just told me you desperately need and so there's no way it's going to go better with the copywriters than it's going with me right now, right? So that's one level of vetting. But in your case with the client you ended up choosing, I think you had probably like a four-part interview series. They talk about that so people have an idea of what that looks like at a high level.
Yeah, it was. There were, I believe, 4 interviews. There was a test project. And I actually loved that process. Some people could see it as a negative of like, why can't you just interview me once and we're good to go? But I really appreciated that process because it also gave me plenty of opportunities to see how they worked and how they communicated. And several times for me to talk to the person that I would be working with and working under in that company. And the test project was actually really amazing. And they did a paid test project, which is always wonderful. But it gave me a chance to get a glimpse into what it would be like working in an editorial way with the copy chief and ads manager there. So what does it look like to get feedback on my copy from this person? And that's something that's really important to me is what that collaboration looks like. And it turned out that it was really fun and a really great process. And I loved it. So, but the very first interview, they kind of surprised me a little bit. I thought it was going to be an interview with one person. It ended up being a panel interview with 3 different people, which might have thrown some people, some candidates off or made them a little bit nervous. I thought it was great because I kind of had a bit of an introduction with some of these people, but yeah, it was like a panel interview at first and then a few interviews after that.
Yeah. Was it the first one or the second one where they were asking you to kind of like critique and optimize an ad in real time?
That was the second interview. And that was, again, kind of sprung on me in the interview, which I love. I think it's smart on their part to make sure that whoever they're going to work with is actually ready to handle the things that are going to come at them. So
yeah, no, you're not like trying to surreptitiously pull up ChatGPT.
Exactly. Which you have to do nowadays because you never know how people are actually writing this stuff. So it was a real-time copy test where he pulled up a landing page and he was like, okay, how would you improve this? How would you make this better? Let's go through line by line, which we did. And we improved the copy, changed around the design. I explained my thinking behind everything. And I think that's really what he wanted to know is like, how are you thinking about this stuff? Not necessarily the copy that we produced in that moment. Like, is that going to be the control now? But more of how do you think about this? What's your logic behind it?
Yeah. As a side note, I was just talking with Patrick Beauvais. I don't have my notes handy, so I hope I get this right. But he has a thing where it's like what it comes down to for a copywriter to become really good is he has to understand and help develop how they see, hear, think, and maybe execute was the last one. I can't remember the last one. But see, hear, think, right? Those are the things that people can improve on. If they're not seeing the world through a copywriter's eyes, with curiosity, with making connections, what are they hearing around them and what are they hearing in the market? Are they truly understanding people's actual desires, not just what they're saying they want, right? How do they connect things they experience to come up with ideas? when I talk to high-level copy chiefs, copy guru, I remember Clayton Makepeace telling me about this in a conversation. It's like, that's when you say, you know it when you see it about a copywriter. And I remember you saying there's a lot of pressure on that call because none of us really work our best that way. It's like when you could say an actor's name from your favorite show 100 times, but then you get in a conversation with somebody and you can't think of it. And you're like, what is wrong with me? I know this person's name like my own. It's kind of like that for creatives when you put us on the spot. But you understood, I know what he's doing. He just wants to make sure I think like a copywriter. And what I'm telling him, so it wasn't about right or wrong necessarily. It was about seeing how you operate creatively.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the most important mindset shift to have when you are going through these interviews or these tests, is to understand where the interviewer or the person on the other side, where they're coming from and what they're trying to gain from this process. So yeah, it was like that real-time copy audit was super nerve-wracking, because it is like, when I write, I've been a writer for many years. I go into my cave. I go into my creative, quiet zone, and that is where I write. I cannot verbally process my writing very well. So having to kind of say, when it's like, oh, what would you change this headline to? And trying to come up with a headline immediately, which is kind of a disaster. But I think it was more of like, okay, well, how do I think about headlines? What am I looking for? What makes a good headline? And verbally processing it that way.
Yeah, and probably like he could tell from that, oh, is she really relying on templates and formulas, or is she wanting to do the opposite of that so it stands out and it's original and something people haven't seen before? All these little things. What I want everybody, hopefully you're stringing together here. So much happens in the in-between in these scenarios. Think about what Sara was saying about having this ongoing back and forth with them. Man, people reveal a lot about themselves when you are in a process with them. How well they communicate. Did they give you the right details? Is the Zoom link correct? Is the meeting getting changed 4 times because, like you said, it's important for you to see, are they organized people? So you're vetting them as much as they're vetting you. We've been saying in the goods, everything is a test. Everything is a test. And it doesn't mean like go be afraid and like be paranoid that you're going to fail all the time. It just means that when you're operating in a professional environment, do everything right. Be responsible. Don't let things fall through the cracks. If they do, for some reason, step up and apologize, because that indicates that, oh, this was an outlier. And if you've been solid on everything else, they'll trust you that, yeah, it's okay. Things get missed, right? It's just so important to be ready like that. Is there a moment where Sara lets her hair down and just like is a total slob on the weekends? Like,
I think, yeah, there have been moments as a pregnant person. Yeah, you just kind of are a vegetable for periods of time, but I try and get it together during the day.
Are you regimented? I'm just curious. Like, are you a scheduler? Do you schedule your next day at the end of the one day and those things? Yeah.
Yeah, I am extremely, when it comes to planning, I have multiple systems that I use. I'm a tracker of everything and taking notes, and I've learned that over several years. I think it's just, if you're a freelancer, you have to have your finger on the pulse of everything that is happening in your week in order to like keep your head on straight, or else you'll miss deadlines. I'm a big deadlines person. I don't ever miss a deadline. And I think that's part of what has built great relationships with my clients, is that I'm extremely reliable. And that's something that I take a lot of pride in. And scheduling and planning and being kind of obsessive helps with that.
Agree 100%. And now you're at a point in your business where you're able to, because you have systems that work for you, you're able to entertain the idea of bringing other people into your business to help you scale in other ways. And you'll know if they're a good fit for you, if they're able to follow your system or a system that's reliable. Again, now you'll be on the other side of this going, kind of a mess, they missed the first meeting, not good. Like, everybody gets you act together. It's okay to be quirky and a little strange. People expect that from copywriters, but you've got to follow the pro code. In the simplest terms, as John Carlton first described it to me, means being where you're supposed to be when you said you would be there, having done what you promised to do.
Absolutely.
It's pretty simple. And it's interesting. you said about deadlines, same way. John drilled that into me earlier. He's like, you just never miss deadlines. It's absolutely unexcused. And it's right. I know other people who jokingly say deadlines are a suggestion. I think Clayton used to say that. Maybe Paris has said that. It's a little different when you're part of the launch planning. And what they're saying is, hey, the ad's not ready. We can't. Okay, great. Well, you have the flexibility to move it out a month because it's your list. But when it's for a client, you have to meet the deadline no matter what it takes. And so being resourceful is a huge thing on that. And again, setting people up for expectations. This is such a big thing in life, just like you did with your clients with your maternity leave. You have to prepare your family on the other side of that in your personal life. If you're a freelancer and you're taking on a big project, it's like a full launch and you have to go to your family and go, hey, I'm going to be a little unavailable over the next 3 weeks or something. And if you just communicate these things in advance with anybody in life, everybody has context and things are much more forgivable and understandable. Communicate. Isn't everything communication, Sarah, at the end of the day?
It is. It is. It's everything. It can make everything so much easier on yourself. And I think one of the problems I had when I first started freelancing was overpromising and thinking that I could do something really quickly. And that I had to work out very fast of really evaluate how long something might take you so that you don't ever miss a deadline or you're not scrambling, and, give yourself enough time to actually complete the project in the right way.
Yeah. Critical. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. Speaking of ProCode, I want to respect your time. I know you're busy and you've got a tiny human inside of you, may need fuel. Very excited to meet yet another Copy Chief family member. We've had a lot of babies recently, and it's always very exciting. So thrilled for you on all levels. Thank you for being a shining example of what the goods looks like on display, sharing some insights today. We'll see you on the showcase on April 10th. Really appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. copychief.com/CCR.